This lesson is a continuation in the study of the book of 2 Samuel, and we are in chapter 12. We will cover 12 and 13 at the end of the last chapter. Chapter 11, we see David take a downward spiral, and we see that he is entered into an adulterous relationship with Bathsheba, and furthermore, they conceived a child, and he sent Uriah, her husband, brought him home to try to cover the pregnancy. He would not go to his home, and David sent him back to the very front of the battle, and he was close in on archers who were shooting arrows from a wall, and Uriah was killed. So David is guilty of both adultery and first-degree murder. And as we learned in the last lecture, if we read Psalm 32, we see that David is thanking God for his forgiveness. Chapter 12, verse 1. And the Lord sent Nathan, that's a prophet and not the child of David, unto David, and he came unto him and said unto him, there were two men in one city, one rich and the other poor. This is going to be some kind of a parable or a story that tells a story. 2. The rich man had exceeding many flocks and herds. 3. But the poor man had nothing save one little ewe lamb which he had bought and nourished up, and it grew up together with him and with his children. It did eat his own meat and drank of his own cup, and lay in his bosom, and was unto him as a daughter. Now, the rich man is David, the poor man is Uriah, and the little ewe lamb is none other than Bathsheba. David does not catch on to this. 4. And there came a traveler unto the rich man, and he spared to take of his own flock, of his own herd, to dress for the wayfaring man that was come unto him, but took the poor man's lamb. Here he had plenty, but he took the poor man's lamb. Remember, David, when he was king over Judah, had quite a number of wives and then took several more. He's not in need of a lamb. 5. And David's anger was greatly kindled against the man. He said to Nathan, as the Lord liveth, the man that hath done this thing shall surely die. It's a death sentence. These things are against Mosaic law. 6. And he shall restore the lamb fourfold, because he did this thing, and because he had no pity. And we learn in Exodus 21:1 that you give fourfold for a lamb that's stolen or taken, and if it's an oxen, you must give 5. So what David has done here, according to this prophet, he has stolen Bathsheba. 7. And Nathan said unto David, thou art the man. Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, I anointed thee king of Israel, and I delivered thee out of the hand of Saul. 8. And I gave thee thy master's house, Saul's house, the royal palace, and thy master's wives unto thy bosom. Yes, he had not only his, but he had the wives that Saul had. And gave thee the house of Israel and of Judah, made you king over not just Judah, but all of Israel. God speaking to David through Nathan. And if that had been too little, I would moreover have given unto thee such and such things. He said, David, you let lust take you over. I would have given you whatever you needed. 9. Wherefore thou hast despised the commandment of the Lord to do evil in his sight. Thou hast killed Uriah the Hittite with the sword. Thou shalt not kill, is that commandment. And thou hast taken his wife to be thy wife, and thou hast slain him with the sword of the children of Ammon. So this would have been a sword or arrows, and of course Uriah became the target there with those arrows from the Ammonites who killed him as they stood up on the wall and shot down, and he was a sitting duck. 10. Now therefore the sword will never depart from thine house, because thou hast despised me, God speaking, and hast taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be thy wife. And that will come to pass. That sword will never leave David's house. That is the royal sword, and that he will be able to continue his line in the king line. Ammon is the son of a half sister, and later on, David's own son Absalom is going to kill Ammon and lead a rebellion against David. So David is entering another hard time in his life, the first being when Saul took after him and tried to murder him. 11. Thus saith the Lord, behold, I will rise up evil against thee out of thine own house, and that's Absalom, and I will take thy wives before thine eyes and give them unto thy neighbor, and he shall lie with thy wives in the sight of the sun, right out in the open, and we'll see that when we get to chapter 16. 12. For thou did it secretly, but I will do this thing before all Israel and before the sun. It will be public. 13. David confesses. And David said unto Nathan, I have sinned against the Lord. And Nathan said unto David, the Lord also hath put away thy sin, thou shalt not die. He was deserving of a capital punishment. 14. Howbeit, because by this deed thou hast given great occasion to the enemies of the Lord to blaspheme, the child that is born unto thee shall surely die. That child that he and Bathsheba conceived in an adulterous relationship will die. Now, 1 John tells us that God does not forgive a murderer, but God did forgive David. David did wrong, and it is always in God's power to forgive, and he will always be fair to every one of us. 14. Howbeit, because of this deed, thou hast given great occasion to the enemies we did 14, 15. And Nathan departed unto his house, and the Lord struck the child that Uriah's wife bare unto David, and it was very sick. 16. David therefore besought God for the child, and David fasted and went in and lay all night upon the earth. He is repentant. 17. And the elders of his house arose and went to him to raise him up from the earth, but he would not, either did he eat bread with them. 18. And it came to pass on the 7th day that the child died, and the servants of David feared to tell him that the child was dead, for they said, Behold, while the child was yet alive, we spake unto him, and he would not eat. He would not hearken to our voice. How will he then vex himself if we tell him that the child is dead? But when David saw his servant whispered, David perceived that the child was dead. He'd been told by God through Nathan. Is the child dead? And they said, He is dead. Then David, 20, arose from the earth and washed and anointed himself and changed his apparel and came into the house of the Lord and worshipped. Then he came to his own house, and when he required, they set bread and before him, and he did eat. And we are told in Hebrews 12, 6 and 7 that God will certainly chastise and correct those persons whom he loves. And he did love David, and David had a great love for God. 21. Then said his servants unto him, What thing is this that thou hast done? Thou didst fast and wait for the child while it was alive, but when the child was dead, thou didst rise and eat bread. And there's a reason for hope. And David, if you would care to do a side study, he tells about his feelings at this time in his life in Psalm 51. 22. And he said, While the child was yet alive, I fasted and wept. For I said, Who can tell whether God will be gracious to me, that the child may live? 23. But now he is dead, wherefore should I fast? Can I bring him back again? I shall go to him, but he shall not return to me. And this is a wonderful message for those of us who have lost children. We will see these again. Jesus, who is capable of raising the dead, will take this little child and he will go to be with God. 24. And David comforted Bathsheba, his wife, and went in unto her, and lay with her, and she bare a son, and he called his name Solomon, and the Lord loved him. Solomon, of course, will be the next king, and that his name means peacemaker. And in the next verse, we're going to say that there was another name for Solomon. 25. And he sent by the hand of Nathan the prophet, and he called his name Jedediah, because of the Lord. So Nathan called him Jedediah, and that son means beloved of the Lord. And Solomon, of course, lived during a peaceful time. He built a beautiful temple for the Lord, and Israel was strengthened during his reign. And Joab fought against Rabbah of the children of Ammon and took the royal city. Now remember, Joab is David's nephew. He is the son of his sister, and he is David's leading general. So he has taken Rabbah. That's the capital of the Ammonites. And the problem there began. David sent out some gifts to those people. Nahash's son, Nahash means snake, the old snake king had been good to David and he tried to repay, but they assumed that David was coming to come against them and that started a war. 27, and Joab sent messengers to David and said, I have fought against Rabbah and have taken the city of waters. It's called the city of waters because it's on a peninsula like our state of Florida. 28, now therefore gather the rest of the people together and encamp against the city and take it, lest I take the city and it be called after my name. Now this was a common practice. Whoever took a place, it was named for them. And remember that David took the city of Jebus from the Jebusites, and he named it Jerusalem, and it has been called the city of David throughout the centuries. 29, and David gathered all the people together and went to Rabbah and fought against it and took it. 30, and he took the king's crown from off his head, the weight whereof was a talent of gold with the precious stones, and it was set on David's head, and he brought it forth in the spoil of the city in great abundance. Now that would have been about 120-pound crown. So this is not an accurate description of the crown because there is no way he could have held up 180 pounds on his head. And he brought 31, and he brought forth the people that were therein, and put them under saws and under harrows of iron and under axes of iron, and made them pass through the brick kiln. And thus he did unto the cities of the children of Ammon. So David and all the people returned to Jerusalem. Now there are critics who will say that these people were sawed and tortured and so forth. That is not supported. What happened is that he put them to work using saws and making bricks and baking bricks, and they were put to labor with these tools, which would have been useful to David. Chapter 13, number 1. And it came to pass after this that Absalom, the son of David, had a fair sister whose name was Tamar, a whole sister, not a half. And Amnon, the son of David, loved her. Now, Amnon would be a half brother to Tamar and to Absalom, too. And Amnon was so vexed that he fell sick for the sister Tamar, for she was a virgin, and Amnon thought it hard for him to do anything for her. Virgin meant that she was off limits. Any kind of relationship with a half sister as outlined in Leviticus, would be against Mosaic law and would be a sin. But Ammon had a friend whose name was Jonadab, the son of Shimeah, David's brother, and Jonadab was a very subtle man. Now, remember back in Genesis that Genesis 3rd chapter, verse 1, that the serpent is called subtle. So let us be wary of this Jonadab. 4. And he said, Why art thou, being the king's son, lean from day to day, or thin? Wouldst thou not tell me? And Ammon said unto him, I love Tamar, my brother Absalom's sister. He said, Jonadab is lean and thin, but he's saying to him, You're not the firstborn son, and you are not going to be the king. 5. And Jonadab said unto him, Lay thee down upon thy bed, and make thyself sick. And when my father cometh to see thee, say unto them, I pray thee, let my sister Tamar come, and give me meat, and dress the meat in my sight, that I may sit and eat it at her hand. So they're laying a ploy here to get Tamar into this fellow's bedchamber. 6. So Amnon lay down. Amnon, not Ammon, Amnon, and made himself sick. And when the king was come to see him, Amnon said unto the king, I pray thee, let Tamar, my sister, King, I pray thee, let my sister come and make me a couple of cakes in my sight, that I may eat at her hand. Wants her to hand feed him. 7. Then David sent home to Tamar, and saying, Go now to thy brother Amnon's house, and dress him meat. Now, all the wives and families of David would have had apartments in this huge cedar palace, and Tamar's family would have been in a separate quarter. Amnon's family would have been in another quarter. 8. So Tamar went to her brother Amnon's house, and he was laid down, and she took flour and kneaded it, and made cakes in his sight, and did bake the cakes. 9. And she took a pan and poured them out before him, but he refused to eat. And Amnon said, Have out all men from me. And they went out every man. So he sent all the men out. Why? Number 1, there wouldn't be a witness. And number 2, someone might try to prevent his evil act. 10. And Amnon said unto Tamar, Bring the meat into the chamber, that I may eat of thine hand. And Tamar took the cakes which she had made, and brought them into the chamber to Amnon her brother. 11. And when she brought them unto him to eat, he took hold of her and said unto her, Come lie with me, my sister. So he is taking her by force. 12. And she answered, Nay, my brother, do not force me. Leviticus 20:17, Deuteronomy 22, Leviticus 18 forbids this. She says, For no thing ought to be done in Israel. Do not do this folly. 13. And whither shall I cause my shame to go on? And as for thee, thou shalt be as one of the fools of Israel. Now therefore I pray thee, speak unto the king, for he will not withhold me from thee. She said, Go talk to the king and ask for my hand in marriage, and he won't refuse. But this would, of course, by Mosaic law, then an illegal marriage. 14, howbeit he would not hearken unto her voice, but being stronger than she, forced her and lay with her. She was raped by Amnon. And that is a death sentence as outlined in Deuteronomy 22. 15, then Amnon hated her exceedingly, so that the hatred wherewith he hated her was greater than the love wherewith he had loved her. And Amnon said unto her, rise and be gone. He's got to take care of his own hide now, because he's will be under penalty of death. 16, and she said unto him, there is no cause. This evil in sending me away is greater than the other that thou didst do unto me. But he would not hearken. She said, you're doing even worse than to send me out, than if this being sent away is almost like a divorcing, being sent out as someone rejected, and it would be a black mark on Tamar. 17, then he called his servant that ministered to him and said, put now this woman out from me, and bolt the door after her. 18, and she had a garment of divers colors upon her, for with such robes were the king's daughters that were virgins apparelled. Then his servants brought her out and bolted the door after her. So she's being treated as a complete commoner and is a daughter of the king. And the colored garment branded her as a virgin, and she has been put out in a shameful way. He is going to make it look like her fault. 20, and Absalom, 19. And Tamar put ashes on her head and rent her garment as divers colors, and laid her hand on her head and went on crying. These are mourning signs, tearing the clothes and putting ashes. 20, and Absalom her brother said unto her, hath Ammon thy brother been with thee? But now hold thy peace, my sister, he is thy brother. Regard not this thing. So Tamar remained desolate in her brother Absalom's house. So Absalom is telling her, just be quiet for right now. We know that Absalom knows, and he's saying, you let me take care of this, Tamar, and he will. But when King David heard of all these things, he was very wroth. 22, and Absalom spake unto him, and Absalom spake unto his brother Amnon, neither good nor bad. He's being smart. For Absalom hated Amnon because he had forced his sister Tamar. 23, and it came to pass after 2 full years that Absalom had sheep shearers in Baal-hazor, which is beside Ephraim, and Absalom invited all the king's sons. So he's having all of them out there, and this is a good 2 years after this rape. And a sheep shearing party was a big celebration, a lot of wine, and a lot of merrymaking. And Absalom came to the king and said, behold, now thy servant hath sheep shearers. Let the king, I beseech thee, and his servants go with thy servant. 25. And the king said to Absalom, Nay, my son, let us not all go, lest we be chargeable unto thee. And he pressed him, howbeit he would not go, but blessed him. This word chargeable unto him, what he's saying is, Absalom, there simply won't be enough room for all of us. And David refused to go. 26. Then said Absalom, I pray, if not, I pray thee, let my brother Amnon go with us. And the king said unto him, Why should he go with thee? And David is showing some suspicion. 27. But Absalom pressed him that he let Amnon and all the king's sons go with him. 28. Now Absalom had commanded his servants, saying, Mark you now, when Amnon's heart is merry with wine, and when I say to you, Smite Amnon, then kill him. Fear not, for I have commanded you, be courageous and be valiant. So Amnon is marked when he gets good and drunk from too much wine. They intend to kill him. 29. And the servants of Absalom did unto Amnon as Absalom had commanded. Then all the king's sons arose, and every man gat him up on his mule and fled. They took out and left because who was to be next? If Absalom is killing brothers, perhaps they are in peril. 30. And it came to pass, while they were in the way, that tidings came to David, saying, Absalom hath slain all the king's sons, and there is not one of them left. Now that's just a lie. Someone went forth with a piece of gossip that wasn't true. And we're going to see David mourn. 31. Then the king arose and tare his garments and lay on the earth, and all his servants stood by with their clothes rent in mourning. 32. And Jonadab, that's his nephew, the son of Shimeah, his brother, David's brother, answered and said, Let not my lord suppose that they have slain all the young men of the king's house. For Amnon only is dead, for by the appointment of Absalom, this hath been determined from the day that he forced his sister Tamar. He said, No, David, he didn't kill everybody. He's been planning this since 2 years ago when his sister was raped. Now therefore, let not my lord the king take the thing to heart, to think that all the king's sons are dead, for Amnon only is dead. 34. But Absalom fled, and the young man that kept the watch lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, there came much people by the way of the hillsides. These are the king's sons, and that young man was keeping watch, or up in the watchtower, or on a hillside watching. 35. And Jonadab said unto the king, Behold, the king's sons come, as thy servant said. So it is. So the king's sons truly are not dead, as the gossip had said. 36. And it came to pass, as soon as he had made an end of speaking, that behold, the king's sons came and lifted up their voices and wept, and the king also and all his servants wept very sore. But Absalom fled and went to Talmai, the son of Ammihud, king of Geshur. He went to Geshur, who would have been his grandfather. And David mourned for his son every day. So we're going to see then Absalom on the run. 38, so Absalom fled and went to Geshur and was there for 3 years. There in the Hebrew they have no words that indicate the difference in a father or a grandfather or a great-grandfather. They are all called fathers, and one just has to be aware as they would have been of the genealogy. 38, 39 to complete the chapter. And the soul of King David longed to go forth unto Absalom, for he was comforted concerning Ammon, seeing as he was dead. So he knows that Amnon is dead. He knows what Amnon did, and we are going to see in chapters that come after this that Absalom will turn against his father, and this will be a downward turn in David's reign. Thank you for watching this video, and join us next time as we continue through the book of 2 Samuel.